When we're prospecting target companies, the most important thing is finding a nugget about the person that you're trying to reach out to the company with something that they said, they did, they've presented, but it's specific to that person. The reason that that's important, and we'll see this in a couple of examples, is we can craft the subject line, which is first base. We've got to get the email open first. We can craft the subject line in such a way that the person's going to be, their ego is going to compel them to answer or open that email. The second thing that we're looking for is relevance. So what we're talking to them about and what we're going to be communicating to them in the email is something that's very relevant to them. And then the third piece that's important is timing. So when we can find a nugget about the individual that we're trying to reach out to at the company, the nearer the time that that quote was made, that presentation was made, they spoke at some conference, whatever the event is, the nearer we can get to when that just happened, the better. So what we're looking for is something that's personalized, something that is relevant both to them and to you, which is the reason for you guys to potentially have a conversation. And then the third bit is timing. Can we send this note in such a time fashion that they're still very keen on that topic and want to know why you're reaching out to them? We're looking for ideas that might feed what the note is going to be about. There's some very obvious places that you might go. One is Google and just type in that person's name and the company name and press go and see what happens. Obviously, their LinkedIn feed. If there's someone who posts on LinkedIn, being able to say, Susan, your recent post on LinkedIn about X will be something that I promise you they will read. If it is, Julie, your recent presentation at XYZ conference is something that I promise you she will open. If it's a public company, and this may be more company specific, depending on who we're writing, it could be person specific, is something that they have announced in their corporate earnings. So every public company will quarterly announce their earnings. There's going to be topics that they talk about relevant to their strategy and or the performance of the company that is very ripe fodder to use for these kinds of outreaches. It could be personal. I mean, depending on the reason that we're reaching out to the person, you may see something that they posted on Facebook that might be very relevant if it's a cause that you care about and you know that they care about. So whether it's Google, company website, conferences, presentations that they've given, or potentially something that they've posted about personally, all of these are just really rich sources to go to find that one little nugget that you need to get their attention, to get on their radar screen, and ideally to get a response from them. So assuming that everybody's on LinkedIn and using LinkedIn actively in their job search, first thing is you want to be following the company. The second thing is you want to be following the person at the company or the people at the company that you may be directing one of these outreaches to. What you'll see in their LinkedIn profile, and on any LinkedIn profile, is a little bell. And once you're following that person, if you click the bell, it will automatically push to you anytime that that person has posted something. So you've demonstrated and told LinkedIn, hey, I'm really interested anytime this person posts content on LinkedIn. And it, as I said, will, in your notifications on LinkedIn, push you that, hey, Bob just published something on LinkedIn. You may want to check it out. I'm telling you, as a content creator, when somebody is following my content, when they like it, and especially when they comment on it or reshare it, that gets my attention. You're already on my radar screen, whether you've emailed me ever, sent me a LinkedIn message or not. But if I see somebody's commenting on something that I've written, we already have a relationship. I know who you are, and it's meaningful to me, so that when we do an outreach coming out of potentially something that that person has posted, you've already started to establish some recognition of your name and build some goodwill with them. So the trick is, how do I find really good content to reach out to somebody with? I'm going to give you a couple of examples that I use in my own business to attract our podcast guests. But whether it's me trying to attract a podcast guest or you trying to get the attention of a hiring manager or an executive at the company, it's the exact same process. So I'm a subscriber to the Wall Street Journal. I wanted to read this article about layoffs. And I saw this quote by Katie George, who's the chief people officer at McKinsey, the giant consulting firm. And the quote here is not spectacular. It just says, "I'm not sure there's one recipe for a layoff." But that was the quote that they had. And I thought, well, I'll write Katie a note and let's see what happens. So I did. And what I said was, and this is very important, the subject line is, "Katie, your comments in the Wall Street Journal." I said WSJ, but your comments in the Wall Street Journal. Her first name and a little bit of a teaser to make her want to open this email. As we said before, when we've got something like, "Katie, your comments in the Wall Street Journal," her ego compels her to open this email because she's like, "Well, what about my comments in the Wall Street Journal? I thought they were pretty great." Well, we're going to tell her they were great and see if she'll talk to us. So, "Hi, Katie. I was reading the article in this morning's Wall Street Journal about layoffs and came across your comments advising that one size does not fit all." So let's just stop there for a second. I just immediately got to the point and I highlighted what she said that I thought was of interest. So in Making Your Own Weather, you'll see that this first part we call just the what. What is it that you identify? Well, I identified that she said that one size does not fit all when it comes to layoffs. Now I'm going to, so what, build on that point. And so again, this isn't amazing, but it definitely got the job done. So I said, well, whether it's layoffs, hybrid work, or any of another myriad of HR challenges, that's good counsel. So I took her point, kind of built on it, and started trying to talk to her a little bit like I'm a peer. Like, I get where you're coming from, I agree, and in fact, let me build on that point. Then we do the pivot, which is, okay, enough about you, let's move on to me. And so the reason that I'm reaching out to you is I was wondering if you might consider joining me on our podcast in the spring. You would do something like, based on this, I thought that it might be appropriate for me to share some of my background with you. And in Making Your Own Weather, we'll talk about star stories. Well, these are in effect my star stories, where I'm showing her recent guests that we've had on our podcast. And again, it's sort of, in the same way that you would be showing some very significant accomplishments that are relevant to the person in the company that you're writing this email to, I'm showing her people in companies that are relevant to her that she would say, oh, this makes sense to me. So again, without getting into who these different people are, in her world, these are all people that she would know and respect. And so I said, hey, I'm somebody that you should probably know. Then I just moved on very nicely. And again, in a very human voice, I'd love to explore how the firm, because I know McKinsey calls himself a firm, not a company. I'd love to explore how the firm itself is adapting to the rapidly evolving workplace, as well as how you are advising clients on key talent related issues. Then I'm also giving her an out. If now's not a good time, no problem. And also, if there's anything I can do to be of help to you, please just let me know. Thanks, and I hope you have a great week. The whole tone here, and this is my voice, but the template is the same, is to write this as a peer, to write it as a human, to write it as an adult. So it's not in resume speak. It's not overly like a PR agency wrote this. This is like some guy in Cincinnati, Ohio, found what she said and wrote her an email. And I sent this at 9:07 in the morning. And within 3 hours, 2.5 hours, she got back. Hey, Bob, thanks for your note. If we can make the calendar work, I would be delighted to do this. And then she's copying her colleague and she'll get the ball rolling for us. So that's example one. On a second example, which I think was really an interesting one too. This is also from the Wall Street Journal. And so this is about hybrid work and going back to the office. And what I found was a quote by the Chief Human Resources Officer for Spotify, Katarina Berg. And she's got a fairly meaty quote here where she's talking about. But then when I liked her, she had something here where she said, if you recruit grown-ups and then you treat them as kids, it's going to backfire. Awesome. Let me go see if I can do something with that. So not surprising, what you'll see is I wrote an email that said, Katerina, your comments in the Wall Street Journal. And again, back to our model, what, so what, pivot, and then the ask. So I said, hi, Katerina, I really enjoyed and appreciated your comments in the Wall Street Journal. And then I quoted her, if you recruit grown-ups and treat them like kids, it's going to backfire. Is such a spot-on observation. And then I kind of did my little build or add to that, saying in the same way Spotify disrupted the old music model, the pandemic has irreversibly altered where, how, and when work gets done. Now I'm doing my pivot. In that vein, I wanted also to see if you might consider being my LinkedIn podcast guest on the future of work. Again, these are my star stories of why she should even think about doing this. And I made a little joke, again, trying to talk to her in a human voice. I bet you can find a podcast service to listen to the replays. And they said, hey, would love to have an introductory chat, see if you might do this. In any event, thanks again for the great insights. Please let me know if I can ever be of help to you. So when did I send this? At 9:30. And she got back to me the next day because she's 6 hours ahead. And she had her admin reach out to me, and we were on the air within a month. So the model is the exact same, whether it's for job search or podcast guests. We're trying to get to busy people who we don't even know, but by doing something that's personal, relevant, and timely, you can see that it elicits a very positive response. And we know that this works exactly the same in job search. Last thing I'll say on this is both of these were tailored to an individual. It works very similarly with the company. So if Spotify had made some announcement about work from anywhere or some other relevant topic that I might reach out to the head of HR about, that was an HR related topic or some move that Spotify had made, we would have essentially the same email, except instead of Katerina, your comments in the Wall Street Journal, it would be Katerina, Spotify's recent move to work from anywhere. I promise you, she's going to open that email and she's going to respond to it. If we can't find anything on the person, if we can't find anything even on the company, which is going to be pretty hard to do because most companies are out on social media. They've got a news page on their website. They're doing something to promote the company. But if you're struggling to find something on the individual or the company, you can still do the same thing on the industry. There's a reason you're targeting this company because whatever it is that they do, you are either very interested in and or you think it relates to your skills. So the template basically is the same. Find the appropriate person at the company, have a subject line that is compelling enough that makes them want to open it, and then follow the template of, I've been researching you, I see that you're doing this, the company's doing this, the industry's going in this direction, build on it, and then switch to what your value proposition is, why you want to talk to them, and ask for the meeting. It's just that simple. I know it'll work for you too. The subject line is really important. Most email gets opened up on one of these guys. And when we see email, and particularly with busy executives, they're scrolling through trying to see what's the most important thing. Everybody knows this, but the most important word in most people's minds is their own name. So when you've written something that's personal to them, and I say Katerina in the subject line, or if I say Katie, or when I see Bob in the subject line, I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't junk mail. This is somebody actually writing me an email. They're going to deserve a response. Let me see what they had to say. So using their first name, extremely important to cut through the clutter. And somebody's quickly scrolling as we all do, to see which emails are most important. When they see their name, that tells them it's important. The second piece that's really foundational to writing these emails is saying enough about what you're going to talk to them about without trying to tell the whole story in the subject line. That's the mistake that people make sometimes, is they think they need to say everything, even in the subject line, and you don't need to. All you need to do is enough that piques their curiosity to say, I need to open this email and see what this person has to say. One of the things that we talked about, and you saw it in the one email that we wrote to the lady at McKinsey, where I said, this may not be a good time for you. I totally understand, not a problem. When we feel pressure to make something happen, and in our case, we might feel a lot of pressure about going to get a new job. We might feel a lot of pressure about this person I have to get in touch with. When we feel that pressure, we oftentimes will telegraph that to the other person that we're talking to. And so when we have that out in there, like, this may not be a good time, totally understand. It's being respectful of their time because they are busy people. But it also says, hey, my world is not going to fall apart if you can't do this right now. So no problem. Just wanted to send this note to you to see if now might be a good time. So leaving that out is really important because, again, it's respectful and it shows that you're not desperate, which is a really important thing to be able to communicate. When we send these emails, again, if we're sending these to executives who tend to be very busy people, while the format, the subject line, the content, all that stuff should generate a response, hopefully fairly soon, we all know that sometimes we read an email and then we get interrupted, or something is just more pressing at the moment, and we don't get back to somebody, even if we intended to. So one, assume good intent. Folks are busy. It wasn't that they're rejecting you. It's not that they're ghosting you. It's just that they may be very, very busy. And at the time that they got your first email, they were just deep into something else and didn't have the bandwidth to devote the time to give you a proper response. So as you all know, we love responding and replying and following up on Friday afternoons. The trick is after 2 o'clock, their time, wherever they might be. If they're in Europe, it's going to be 5 or 6 hours earlier versus Eastern time. If they're in California, it'll be 3 hours later Eastern time. But 2 o'clock, whatever their local time is, anytime after 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon, very conversational. So it's reply all. It's not a new email. We're replying to the original email. Hi, Julie. Hope you've had a great week. Just wanted to follow up on my note below to see if we might have a few minutes to connect. New line. Hope you have a great weekend and look forward to speaking with you soon, Bob. That's it. It's very simple. It's very, again, human voice, not in resume speak or like, a PR agency wrote it. We're just genuinely, hey, I hope you had a good week. Know you're busy. Want to just follow up my notes, see if we might find a time to talk. Hope you have a great weekend. Talk soon, Bob. The response rate on those emails is very high because what you'll get back often is maybe potentially, hey, now isn't a good time. Well, we already told them when we gave them the out that if now's not a good time, that's okay, so no problem. But oftentimes what you get is, hey, so sorry, I was traveling this week. I saw your note, didn't have time to respond. Hey, I'm copying my executive administrative assistant to follow up with you. Hey, I'm copying the head of talent acquisition or HR person to follow up with you. You will get some kind of response to the follow-up. So the rule that we would encourage you to follow, be genuine, be brief, and do it on Friday afternoon. One of the tools that we've tried to provide you guys with are some templates, and they're just that. They're templates. A template is not a script. So I have my own unique way of saying things. You have your own unique way of saying things. The template is something that gives us structure. So the structure of the subject line, the structure of, I was reading your quote, I saw your presentation. What sparked my imagination about that, that's sort of what you're adding bit, and then pivoting into why you're reaching out to them, some reasons to believe that you're a relevant person they should be talking to, and asking them for a few minutes. That is the template. The words that you use, the tone that you strike need to be genuine to you. If it sounds like somebody else wrote it for you, if it doesn't feel natural to you, it's going to be much less effective. So use the template for what it's good for, which is consistency in how you're doing this. It greatly reduces the burden of how hard it is to do these, because now they're not each a one-off, piece of art, but it's like, okay, I know the structure, I know what I'm looking for in an article, I know how to weave this into a note. And what you'll find is, particularly if you're doing this to companies that are in generally the same industry, is that you'll be able to crank these out a little bit faster and not have to spend 2 hours in deep research. You saw with the example that we used where the lady said one size doesn't fit all. That's not the most insightful comment ever, but it was enough to generate the letter. So use the template just as structural guidelines, but make the voice your own, because at the end of the day, that's what's really going to carry the day, is that they connect with you as a person.